Okay, so we're getting on now with the Tomcat. What we've got to do is basically fill up all these doors we've opened up. So actually what we've got down here would be a very, very nice setup. We've got the gun bay just down here at the front, which obviously very nicely detailed gun, a little bit of wiring, things like that would look absolutely fantastic with all the doors open. We've got electronics bays moving further back here, which obviously you can install all the parts into. Obviously down in here we've got the ammunition drum, and it really would be very, very nicely detailed. Unfortunately, this is in flight, as we said, so again, we're not going to see any of this. So what we need to do is cover this all up. Now I've got the doors off. Now if you're building the D version like we're doing here, you're going to be using parts H, which are these rear ones which are common for both kits, and then obviously the different ones, it's S in this case for the forward, because that's the difference between the D Tomcat and the earlier versions of the Tomcat, the A and the B. So really just have a look at your instructions and you'll follow through. When you put these in and lay them down, you think, oh, that's quite nice, but the trouble is they sink a little bit too far in. The actual dooring, if you like, is a little bit too deep. They do go a little bit in. So what we're going to do is just put them in one at a time and see how they sit. And if they are sinking a little bit too much down there, we can obviously go around and fix the problem. So what we're going to do is just tack it in place with a little bit of extra thin. Okay, just down in these, and let the capillary action do all the work of filling in all the gaps as it works its way round everywhere around like that. So we're happy how that one is sat. Perhaps we might need a little bit of Mr. Surfacer, but not much in there. Okay, next door is going to go on. Okay, and just be careful how you pop it in and it lines up, because already you can see it sits a little bit deep. So we're just going to lightly place it in up the front here. Again, let the capillary action do all the work here. Don't go around pushing it in and squishing it. Two things. First of all, obviously the glue's a hot action and it'll weld it and take care of any small gaps. But also, if you're going to go around pushing it in, what's going to happen is you're going to squish the glue, will come up, then it'll make a mess, then you've got to try and sand it and get rid of it, everything else like that. So that's those two in. The next one goes along. What you've got to do is place this little part here, which in the case of this one, make sure we get the right one here, is H27. Now obviously it can be open or closed for the various ones you need, but it sort of sits down under here before it goes in, and it's not the best fit. So what we do is pop a bit of glue under here to get the capillary action to hold. What we're going to do is just lightly sand a little bit of this down. So we're just taking a little bit of the width out of it, then we're just going to sand the top of it down just to take a fraction of the height, so it just slides in there a bit easier. So we just go like that. Okay, and then when we should come along, hopefully it'll fit just in there a little bit nicer. It's still not perfect down in there. I'd like it to go a little bit more. We'll test it with the top door. Now this is the access ladder, but obviously you would detail up if you were having it all open. So that fits in. Now as you can see, we've got a few little problems. You've got a gap at the bottom, you've got one at the side, you've got one at the top. Thing is, it fits. So we are going to have to do a little bit of filler around those areas. So for the minute, again, we're just going to let the capillary action and the glue take care of it. And then what we'll do, we'll come along and we'll fill it where is needed, because obviously in reality we're not going to have huge gaps like this on the real thing. Okay, and then we'll rescribe in the panel lines afterwards, but it's something that I'll show you because we've got a few little marks you might be able to see down here which you're going to need a little bit of filling as well. Okay, next up, the gun bay. So very carefully, normally I would let these dry off a little bit in between each one going down. So immediately when you look at the edge of this part here, it's a little bit rough. So throwing it around. Ooh. Small fingers today. So what we're going to do now is grab a sanding stick, flat to the edge. Okay, and we're just trying to square it out a little bit and make it neater. It's just where the moulding's just a fraction off perhaps. Alright, so we just come along, again, drop it in, but again it sinks too deep in, so we're going to just try and lift it slightly, for a slight raise on the end. But again, this is all test fitting to see how it fits. If it doesn't go, that's when we're going to have a look at it. If you've got the situation where your panel falls right the way in, there's ways that we can put a little shimmer plastic card behind it or something like that, just to help it up. And we can see down here at the front where my finger is, so it's just lifted it up there, you might be able to see down here, we've got quite a nasty gap down there we're going to need to take care of. So what we'll do, just for the moment, we're just going to take the little bit of the height out of that edge, so it sits nicely. Again, we can come fill it if needed to take care of the area. That sits in there a lot better now. So again, we've got gaps on the bottom, so it would be a lot easier when you're doing this to have it all open, because you won't have to go around and fix joins and seams and panels and things like that. But as I say, we've got big plans for this bird, so we'll have it all open, all closed up and buttoned up nice and tight for a nice in-flight display. But again, as I said, nasty gap appearing down the bottom here, which is probably only going to get worse as things move on. Okay, next plate goes in, air vents to the rear. Actually, that's a nice fit, that one. But as you can see, when you compare it to the other ones down on the front here now, this one back here, it's not nice at all. Okay, so we are going to have to do some little bits of work with that. Again, capillary action doing all the work as it goes along. Filling it in. Last of all, we've got the actual plate. Now, if you wanted to, you could leave this off, put it on last, because it's going to have a metal effect on it. But I'm worried about gaps, and as you can see, we've got quite a nasty gap here, and we'll be able to pick if you want it top or bottom. So what we'll do, again, we're just going to pop in with our glue, let the capillary action flow around in there. And now it's in there, I'm going to push it to the top. It's made a little bit of the squidge of the glue you might be able to see on there. Okay, so we're just going to pop over around the bottom to seal it all up. So there you go, that's our little point in there. So if we just bring you in a minute, you can probably see got some gaps and some work we need to take care of. So obviously we've got this big one up here we're going to have to take care of, something around here. The rears aren't too bad. Underneath we've got a big one down there and this one under here. But they're all things can take care of, a bit of filler, bit of obviously work in there, and we'll have no problem at all. Last thing underneath, we've got to go under here. Again, normally you'd have your gear and all things like that. We've got our gear door which is going to go in, and we're just going to glue it in place again. So far so good with all of this. It's worked very, very nicely, and I think by the time we go around and do Mr. Filler gear and everything else, the other thing as well, obviously it saves a lot of time. The other downside, as I said, lots of money on your kit you're not going to see. Okay, next one up, we've got the actual the grab and feet handles go up here. Is where your foot plates go, just in here. Make sure you get these the right way up. That's why I'm just double checking mine now. My references, if we get them in, so it should be just like so. I'm pretty sure it's around that way. I'm just going to check it against the real references in the reference book just to make sure they are correct, because I don't want to be putting them on and then find out they're up the other way. So double latches are to the top. So that one on there is on upside down. Okay, so again, double latches then go to the top, up here, touch, all the way around, seal that in. Same with the rear one. Okay, I'm just going to tap the corners and let the glue do all the work here. Unless you get a little puddle like that, then you can drag it around. But there we go. Buttoned up roughly. Okay, as I say, it's not particularly pretty, but it's halfway there. Okay, nose going on. Obviously, again, no radar, we don't have to worry about it. Nice little touches, these little latch. Got these joins on here that will actually hold it all in position and also will hold it closed. So again, it's going to come in. What you need to do is just gently clean up these top. There's a couple of ejector pin marks. You've got like one part that comes off, but it's not ejector pin, it's just mould sprues. Just need to be squared down and sanded off just to make it a nicer fit on the top. So obviously that's going to come in. Okay, so we just look around and make sure we haven't got anything obvious where it's stopping it from closing. Got a little bit of height down at the bottom. So these little touches, if you do these, it will just save you a bit of work later on. Okay, so we come in again with it. and having a look. Okay, got quite a nice seam on the nose. Okay, plenty of glue just coming up again. We're just going to pop these in, tap them in, running all the way around, and then again. If you've got a gap, don't try and fill it with glue, because once it's in there and sits, you like there, you give it a bit of a nudge and it should settle down without doing that preferably. Okay, sit it in, settles down, glue, and then what you can do is come back again and build up glue layers to seal it in. Normally I leave noses off because they're easier to paint afterwards, but because we've got these gaps at the top, you might be able to see just up here, we want to take care of them early with filler, things like that. It just makes it all neater and smoother. And that's the thing with this one, because we're doing it as a flying diorama, it's all got to be smooth and nice and everything else like that. So obviously we've got the top bit up here is going to be open, we're not going to worry about that. The other thing we've got to put on is the actual tracking device underneath. Again, this is going to be kit specific, so just what you want, I'll just call you out now. It's N1415 for the D type, but obviously other ones will be different. A couple of little marks on here we're going to need to take care of, but we'll glue it all up together first, let it dry off, sand and polish this completely, and then we'll fit it to the aircraft once we're happy with it. So for the moment we're just going to glue these up. So we just pop around all around this, and this will take care of our front section for the moment. Okay, just like so, but when it goes on, obviously it's going to come along and it's just going to fit to the bottom under here, just like that. So we're just going to let those bits go dry off for a moment and we'll get some other prep work done. Okay, so next up we've got the main fuselage, which comes in this very nice plastic box. So get it out. And those bits out. Now we've got to open up holes on here, down on the bottom side. You can pretty much see them in here as you go through, but we'll have a quick run through the ones we're going to be doing. We're going to be opening up most of them. So what we've got here is a little 1mm drill bit. So we've got to open up these two outer ones on the outside here. Okay, so the easiest way to do that is to do one side of it, then the other. Okay, on both of these, so just punching slightly through one and then the other. And then what you can do is just come through with a pair of scissors, hopefully, and it'll just walk it through. And that way, on the inside, you can see you open up the holes like that. Then you can take a blade and clean them up. And then what you can do is just square them out, because I've got little pegs going to be going in there, just like so. That's our one done, just down here. Easy. So then we can just open up these other ones, which we're going to be opening up the two rear ones. So we've got 1, 2, 3 and 4. Okay, then next we're opening up 4 across here. So it's 82, you can see it on there. 2, 3, 4, and we've got 2 slightly inner ones, 1 and 2, just in like that. So we've got these on the other side. So the ones we're not touching, to make it slightly easier, is the 2 middle ones, 2 to the end. We're not worried about those at all. So we just pop this one in and the last one. Okay, and down here you can just open those up, just pop a blade just down in between. You'll find it should follow its way down, and then we can just trim them up. Opens up all those holes. As I say, just pop a flat blade across these, it makes the holes nice and crisp. Okay, we'll put these ones down here. Okay, so that's one is done, all opened up. Next up, it calls for the tails to be done. Now, there's a couple of points on here. I've done one already. We've got the tail section in there like that. Thing is, I've got a couple of ejector pin marks that you need to really take care of on here, and they are right at the top here. You can probably see a couple of ejector pin marks up here. Okay, we want to get rid of those because it's going to interfere with our fit. So we're using quite a wide sanding stick, and what we're trying to do is just remove them, get them off. That's those out. Check for any others that might interfere as well, so have a look round. Got a small one to the rear here. Okay, want to get rid of those because if they are slightly raised, it just makes for a sort of bad joint. We've also got a centre seam that's going to run down the edge here like this. I'm just going to take that out as well. We'll just do it now with a sponge to keep it rounded. Okay, and then what we'll do, just grabbing some extra thin. Just going to put a line across the top there, just so it's got something to grip into. Stops it running all over the place. Okay, then we'll just start down this lower end first. Pin this in. And underside, just down under here. Running up extra thin everywhere around. And then it can come back up the rudders where they're going to join. Just give it a pinch every now and again, just to make sure it is all settled in. And then we've got the seam along the top, which again, this will be a slight filler job, I should think, just to make it a little bit more precise. Okay, now doing underside bits, hanging it down, brush underneath, okay, like this, and then we tap the underside and drag it a little bit, tap the underside and drag it a bit. What's happening is the capillary action will suck the glue up, okay? If you do it this way, this is when you get a big run comes down, sticks your finger to it, and if your finger sticks to it, you end up with a big fingerprint. Makes loads of work, so we don't really want that. Okay, we've already put the two halves of rudder together, so I'm not going to actually attach these, but normally these would attach in like this, and away you go. I'm going to leave mine off because I might want to position the rudder. I've got an idea for, because obviously we're not opening up things, of having perhaps some of the control surfaces moving, so it looks like it's actually pulling a manoeuvre at the time in the in-flight. So I might just leave the rudders off for a minute so I can actually position them, perhaps both the rudders kinked to one side a little bit, as if the pilot's giving a little bit of pedal. So that's those done. We're going to let those dry off just for a moment, okay, and then we can carry on and we can start installing the bottom part here of the actual intake system in there, which will give this a lot more rigidity and really start to bring it together. Okay, so the next area we've got to do, as I said, is in here. So what we're going to do now is install the airflow system that's going to come in the front here. Now, it's a little bit complex how it goes, and obviously you've got various holes for various things to go in just down here. So what we're going to do first, we're going to place the actual activators for the plates. So you first of all, you've got G27, you've got G27 and a G30, which are going to be the two real ones, and then you've got G14 at the front. So we're just going to put a bit of glue down in there. So we're just going to pop these in first. So we've got the one towards the rear is going to face against the rear. Okay, so we just place that one in temporarily for the moment. Okay, so that's your G27. We've got our front one going in as well, which is our G30. The only thing you need to do is make sure they're somewhat square. Then we've got the little short guy that's going to go at the front, which is G14. Okay, now once they're in there, we're just going to pop a little bit more glue on them. You're not going to particularly be able to see them because they're going to be underneath. So we'll just do these top ones as well. Just down like that. Okay, we'll pop these in again. So the rear one going in. And because we're using, sorry, the right way around here. Because we've got different length ones, just make sure you get them in the right order. Okay, and one to the front. Okay, so now we've probably got enough for it to go off, so we can place these on. So we've got the large curved one towards the rear. Now we just got to make sure we've got these round the right way, because obviously there is a left and right to these. So what we're going to do, we will just literally, it doesn't explain particularly well where the rear one goes, so what we'll do, we'll place the front one on first to see actually how it is. And when you look down, you should notice a slight edge on there. It's a scoop, so it will match the front as it happens. So what we'll do, we'll just place a little bit of glue onto these for this little guy down here. Okay, and then in. I'm hoping these are square. You might want to let them go off a little bit more. Okay, so that's sort of one on, just like so. So we're going to put a little bit of glue down the front, just to hold it all in place. The capillary action will flow along the front. Okay, then we've got the one to the rear. Inside. So again, we'll just pop some glue up in the back here. Hopefully got it lined up correctly. Hopefully not doing that. Just move it round. But then what it will do, it will just literally sit on here, which isn't as easy as it sounds, because these are still obviously wet and moving, but we want them to keep moving because I don't want them to go off and obviously be in the wrong position. This way we can just slightly maneuver it around. Which is a lot easier said than done. Get there in a minute. Which is on there something like that. So hopefully between the two you should have it installed like this. And what this does, this little area here manoeuvres up and down to slow the airflow actually coming back into the engines. So we'll have a little play around with those to get them to sit on there properly. At the same time, we've got these air engines that are going to come further on the back and down here. The thing you notice about them, you've actually got a seam line, catch it in the light, running right the way down. It's just where it's moulded over a curve. You've got two seam lines just down here. They need to come out. So using an old sanding stick, we're just going to polish out the seam line. It's like the centre seam on a canopy, so we'll do it exactly the same way as we do that. So going over it with these first. Okay, until it's all blended in. You can't see any panel line itself, or seam line itself I should say. Okay, so we'll get rid of that. And then when that's gone, you might be able to see the white of it showing through. When that's gone, like so, in with the sanding sponges. First one, just like that, and on the other side. Okay, then we get the polishing stick. Let's grab a new one. So in with the green side, just to polish up, get all the scratch marks. In with the white to polish up the plastic and make it like new. There we go, all sorted, nice and shiny again. Same on the other side. In with the white. There we go, it doesn't have to be a perfect job. Okay, and then it's going to be a straightforward marry these in. One interesting little mark is you've got a big panel line running right down the middle, a seam line of this one. And the thing is, I think it's actually designed because it does follow the main one as well. You could have the engine open so you can see it as you build the actual kit. It doesn't give any instructions for it, but it is there, which is a little bit strange. So what we do now, we just seat this in the right side. Right one on. You will come in and sit down, have a good look around it. But as I say, it's a pretty good seam on those, won't really have to worry about that, so we can put that one on. So we get both of those on, these rear ones situated, and then we can actually fit the actual main air intake onto this one, which will give it a lot more rigidity. Okay, so we've got this part on now and put it in, just to really say how it would go in there. We put the rear part in, then the front. To be honest, a little bit of a handful, so I'll come up with I think, a better way on the second one. First thing you need to do though is down in here, you might be able to see in here we've got 4 ejector pin marks down there. Now obviously you can probably see the scoop down the back. We've got an air intake system that's going to fit in the rear, but we need to get rid of those. So popping in with a thin sanding stick, we should be able to pop these in. We just bring you in a little bit. We should be able to get in. We'll use a wider one as well, just to literally trying to grab this without bending it, to sand these out rather than try and fill them. As I say, they're just quite a nasty little thing if you were to see in there. Now I'm not saying you will do, because they're not exactly easy to see, just like that, but you can see they're pretty much, get rid of them. There we go. Okay, in with a sponge. We don't need to polish it up in here because we're going to have it quite coarse, because the white can go on, but you can see, there we go, that's those taken care of. Clean out the back of that filler dust so it doesn't interfere. Okay, now normally, as I said, I've got this front part on here like that, no problem at all. Rear section goes on, no real problem at all. Okay, that fits in quite nicely. The problem is when you come to put this front edge in, it makes for, as you can see here, we've had to fill this one, quite a nasty joint. So what I'm thinking will probably be better is to join these together to make a nicer seam across these two than it would be to go around and do them normally. So by putting them in like this, we should be okay. So the way we're going to do that is a mixture of super glue and normal glue. So we're just going to pop in some normal extra thin, just to start to get it melting. Place them together. Okay, but even when you place them together, they're not the best fit in the world. Okay, so we're just going to place that up. Now you want to do it so this plate on this side is level with the top of the other side. Okay, and then on the other side you've got a step, because on this one we've got a step down here and you've got a small step to the rear as well. So when you stick them all in and you level it up, we've got quite a nice little join now running round the back. So we're just checking how it is with the other side. So when you look in with the other one, we've got a small step, so that's what we want to do. It's just a little 1mm steps. Try not to get glue everywhere here. So by little pushing and nudging, and now the glue's starting to bite a little bit, we can just maneuver it into position until you're happy with it. Now when we're happy that that's quite smooth, or as smooth as we're going to get, we'll come in with some super glue on the inside, just wrap round a generous bit round like that, in with a kicker. Okay, bit of a blow. Okay. Just remember, if you're using quite a bit of super glue like that, don't put too much on there because it gets extremely hot, and if you get your fingers still caught on it, it does get a bit warm. But there we go, now we've got a nice smoothish seam. We're gonna have to go around and take care of it, but we expect that type of thing with this type of sort of join on here, but it's in there a lot nicer. So what we'll do now, we're just going to come with more extra thin and just paint the outside of it. Then what we'll do, normally give this a bit of time to dry off, don't try and stick it in right now, but because we're under the clock here, we'll try and fit it in gently. Now this is going to slip down the side, down in here, okay, just down in there, and then obviously out. So what we'll do, just very carefully, we're just going to put this in to start with. You might even want to remove the little tabs. You've got these little tabs down the back here. They're very large, very chunky, and to be honest, the way this all fits in, they don't do a great deal either. Okay, so we just pop that in. So already this one's becoming a problem, so we're just going to cut this tab back. Okay, and the other one. Just taking 1mm off both sides, so that way it still has got the power to hold its position, but at the same time it's going to give us a little bit of movement to be able to slide it forward and back. Make sure you got rid of all the ejector pin marks. I've left one, well, it's a panel mark, just that one there, because obviously things like that will really mess up your join. So we'll just take that one out. Just like that. I've had the others all off, and then we can fit them in. If you're wondering which side it is, you've got a small little step down here. This is going to go to the inside. So what we'll do now, hopefully, this will allow us to come along and join up. Push this back, a little bit of room. Just trying to get this down on the inside, we'll do it from this side and slip it through. Let me get this more like it. Okay, and when you push down, you should find it will nicely lock in, as you can see. Very little seam, no real one down there, and round the back. That's a lot easier than doing it the other way, as I did on the other side, with putting one in at a time. But that goes in just like that. Let's say here I've got a nasty step I'm going to have to take care of. Don't get me wrong, we're still going to have to put thinners around there and everything else like that. Fill around there and everything like that to fill it up. But it's a far nicer joint, so you might want to join those two together before putting them on. So I'll get them glued in.